So I'm going to take you guys through a little talk of how I started as a Nostr bear. So in other words, I was like, okay, Nostr is just another nerd project for a bunch of nerds. And then I sort of came to believe that there is actually something here with Nostr. So a couple months ago, this project, and I'm going to explain Atlantis, started off as an attempt, and some of you might know that I've been building Spirit of Satoshi for a little while with a small AI team. And we wanted to basically build a Bitcoin-centric AI. And someone reached out to me and said, hey, can we build like a AI concierge? You know, like I want to go to El Salvador and I would love to ask like an AI, you know, which merchant should I go to? Which group should I hang out with? Which people are around, this and that. And the more we dug into it, we were like, you know what? That is the wrong UX. The right UX is something more like Nomad List. And for those, I mean, who's familiar with Nomad List? Anybody? Okay, a couple of people. Just to sort of give you a quick overview of what it is. Nomad List is the world's largest nomad directory, right? So it's basically where, you know, if you're a nomad and you want to travel to a city, you go there, you have a look at what's going on, blah, blah, blah. It's got like scores, stats, this, that. And it's become quite popular because nomads don't really have another choice. So as we dug into this, we wanted to do something a little bit more unique. We wanted to have people on the ground in each of the cities, because one of the gripes I have with Nomad List, and you know, I've been to 50 countries, nomaded for 5 years, all this sort of crap, nomaded during the hardest period to nomad. And one of the gripes that all these ambassadors had was, hey man, I'm like running my local meetups on meetup.com. I've got Telegram groups, I've got Facebook groups, I've got WhatsApp groups. I'm fucking all over the place. And we said, well, you know, nomads also have the same problem. It's like when you travel, like, you know, who here, you know, landed in Madeira and was like looking for Ubers, and you're like, oh shit, it's actually Bolt. So, you know, there's things you don't know when you come to a place. And, you know, at the moment, all of that sort of stuff is being done across 10 different applications, Nomad List, TripAdvisor, all this sort of stuff. So we kind of said, look, why don't we just like unify all of this and create like a hub for cities, like a homepage for a city, which has everything on it: events, merchants, chats, community, scores, stats, reviews, all this sort of stuff. So we kind of went from trying to build like a simple Bitcoin nomad list, and it kind of evolved into what we're calling now Satlantis. And we specifically picked the name Satlantis because we wanted people in the Bitcoin space to get it, but people out of the Bitcoin space like to be like, okay, it's got nothing to do with Bitcoin, who gives a shit? Because I think we're entering the age of products post Bitcoin. So like, I think, you know, these days people don't go around and say, oh, you know, I have an internet company. It's like everything is plugged into the internet, right? My hope is that in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll have just every company has a Bitcoin element. You know, every company has a Nostr element. It's not like a Bitcoin company. Like the age of wallets, the age of exchanges, the age of mining companies, I hope is like past us. I think it's time for building products that are Bitcoin and now, since I'm a Nostr believer, Bitcoin and Nostr enabled. And that's sort of the premise of what we're trying to do. So we're trying to take like the nomad directory element of Nomad List, the social element of Facebook groups, and the travel and reviews element of TripAdvisor, and kind of combine all of that into a product. And that's made possible by the existence of Nostr. And this is where Nostr sort of becomes interesting for me. And I believe the killer app is two things: is an interoperable identity and a portable social graph. That is, for me, extremely interesting about Nostr, and I was sort of going down that rabbit hole with a few people. But basically, this is sort of a glimpse of what, when you click into a city, all of the things you're going to find: profiles, scores, stats, guides, meetups, conferences, events. So we're, you know, plugging in with, I think he's here somewhere. I think I saw him, that Zach over there who's building Seeker, and like all of these applications can talk to each other, right? Is that, you know, while he's building out the events, all of those events will also be available in Satlantis. So when you land in a city, you know straight away who's your community, who's your people. You can follow multiple cities. We're going to build out a feed so that way all the different cities and all the different people and ambassadors and influencers and everything that you follow, you are sort of getting this beautiful feed of what's important to you, what's relevant to you in a city. So, you know, this is some sort of notes about, you know, how we're thinking about this. Is I fundamentally believe the biggest community trend that's going to happen over the coming decade is going to be location or physical location centric trends is like we've had all the online communities and people are getting massive whiplash from being locked in their houses for fucking 2 weeks that turned into 2 years. So that is going to turn into people wanting and craving physical stuff, which is why we've seen this proliferation of Bitcoin conferences. People want to come and actually connect and meet people in meet space. And I want to build, or me and the team want to build, a location-centric network. So what we're doing, which is really interesting, and yesterday or the day before, Million got up and spoke about Primal and spoke about how people are trying to find different ways of monetizing applications that use Nostr. And he mentioned no one's figured out the advertising avenue yet, and that's what we're going to try and do, because in my opinion, advertising is not evil, advertising is broken. And with our model, we're going to have ambassadors, so kind of like city champions in every single city. And those ambassadors, those city champions are going to be in charge of making sure that great content is being posted, that merchants are being added, that activity is happening on the city. They'll be in charge of the scores, the ratings, statistics, and all this sort of stuff. Community will be able to validate all of this. They'll rate, review, upvote, chat, post content, do all this sort of stuff. They can join local events, find work, do all the things that, they could otherwise do in a social network, but on a travel, living, lifestyle sort of oriented network. And this is where the potential advertising opportunity comes in, which is we become real estate. We become a display network where if we do it intelligently, without fucking spamming you, number one, you as a person traveling around will see stuff that's relevant to you. Like when you would have landed in Madeira, you would have seen that, hey, Bolt is probably a good thing to use here. Or this and this and this restaurant is a great place to go. I don't know if people have been running around. We had the most hilarious restaurant experience last night with 20 people. It was a complete disaster. A couple of the guys had to order their steaks 4 times. Total mess. But that kind of stuff you want to know about. So our big thing is we want to, like, if you have an ambassador layer and you're using the Nostr social graph, you can understand people's influence and you can measure activity and you can programmatically distribute advertising revenue to the ambassadors in proportion to their engagement, their activity. So for the first time, like, instead of being treated like a product, which is what Facebook and Google does, they market you, you put all the content, they keep all the money. Here, it'll programmatically distribute amongst those who are actually doing the work, creating the engagement, creating the influence, and doing all of that sort of stuff. And the beauty of Nostr as well is buy a badge and you won't see any fucking advertising, so for those people who don't want to see that. So it gives you that extensibility, it gives you that flexibility. So that's what I find interesting. So anyway, what I'm doing kind of today is, we've got 50 of the coolest Bitcoin and sort of like, not sort of known for Bitcoin. Like, I see Curtis in the audience here from Vancouver. Like, we've got all of these cities established now, or at least ambassadors for them ready. And as of today, we're opening it up to people to apply to be ambassadors in each of the different cities. And, the benefits that you get for being an ambassador is sort of, you get to be the go-to person in the city. You get to share in the ad revenue. You get to basically bring stuff to your city, because a lot of people who are, who are selecting as ambassadors at the moment, they're doing it already. They're running around, they're like bringing on merchants, they're running meetups, they're doing all this sort of stuff, but they don't have a home page to bring people to. And that's sort of the premise. So, this is an invitation to everybody. If they go to Satlantis.io, they can check it out, because I want to just sort of finish this up on like the big picture idea here, which is a decade from now, I don't think like people should go to Google or to, I hate TripAdvisor so much, but to either of those things to figure out what the hell's happening in a city. What you should do is you go to something like Satlantis, which is social graph enabled, and think about it this way. When I go to TripAdvisor and I see a review for a restaurant, written by a 45-year-old soccer mum, like, that review has nothing to do with me. But if I see a review weighted by who I follow, what I've liked in the past, what I've reviewed, who I've tipped for a different review, the kind of communities I'm in, the chats I'm in, and all of that sort of stuff, and that is presented to me, that's now relevant. Like, I've got Alan, who I work with here. If he's rated a restaurant that should be more important to me than some nobody. And this is what the Nostr social graph enables. So, I fundamentally believe that this is like a pivotal moment. For me, like I said at the beginning, I've been a Nostr bear the entire time. I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's for nerds. But the piece that hit me was this idea that you don't have to tell people they're on Nostr. They sign up, the NSEG bunker thing that Pablo created is fantastic. You just give them an MPub. And at some point, one of our products, whether it's Atlantis, whether it's Primal, whether it's Highlighter, whether it's Seeker, whether it's Unleash.chat, and the myriad of other applications that are out there, one or more are going to start to be successful. And what happens is every one of their users becomes one of our other users, right? And this is something that hasn't happened before. In the past, network effects have always happened inside a walled garden. This is the first time when a network effect can compound across multiple applications that are useful. So I kind of envision a time when you get like this gradually, then super suddenly with Nostr. And I don't know how long that's going to take, but I get the sense somewhere in the next 18 months to 5 years, something is going to pop in this space. And this is why I've sort of turned all of my personal attention and the team's attention, everything that we're doing in the AI space, and bring it here, because I think this is a fundamentally bigger opportunity. And one other note that I'll make, I was hoping Pablo was going to make it, but, I wanted him to say a few words on Nostr, but he's not been able to make it. But this is, I think there's a big distinction between, building directly, just on Nostr and just building another client versus building an application that leverages stuff like Nostr and Bitcoin. It's like, and it's sort of to what I said earlier, we don't need another Bitcoin company, right? You don't need a Nostr company. You just need a company that happens to use these tools. And instead of being in people's faces about, the Nostr. And that's fine now, because I think it's very important to like get that community going. And, Nostr is obviously younger than Bitcoin, so we're going to have to go through that stage. But fundamentally, like, we have to shift that paradigm and just build fantastic products, build fantastic services that leverage these things. And people don't need to, they don't need to know. We're not running around telling people that we're, building on SMTP when we, integrate email. So this is a couple glimpses of what it looks like. So for the first time, you'll be able to leave a review, and somebody can actually tip you for a review. There's an interesting stat, like TripAdvisor just reached 1 billion reviews in total, and they've paid everyone out a grand total of 0. And nobody's been paid for anything. So I think all of that stuff begins to change with the existence of Nostr and sort of the Nostr Bitcoin symbiosis. I think that's extremely important. That just hasn't existed before. Monetization, portable social graph, borderless money, interoperable identity. Like, it's a beautiful marriage of things. So that's me. Thank you all for listening. If you're interested, come see me afterwards. You can ask me as many questions as you want about Nostr. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your time.